Welcome back, everyone, to Moving Goalposts. I'm Billy.
I'm Amanda.
And we are going to talk some Aggies, Longhorns, Aggies, SEC, college football, everything you can think of. We're going to start.
I did see, cutting you in right there, I did see a post today from our friend Robert over on X saying this is a time, it's June, it's time where the absolute worst takes in sports come out. So it was a perfect time to have a podcast about college sports at this time.
Hey, it's kind of the final month before we ramp up into real football talk, which is going to start in August and really once September starts, Amanda, right when these games start, where we, just like everyone else, you don't really have to prep. You let the games tell the stories.
Everybody's thirsty for it, like they are thirsty for what you're about to show them.
Thirsty for La Casa tequila.
Yes.
This is just a little. So what we're going to start doing is having a little of this during the show. I know you said a couple of drinks cooked up.
I have some spots waiting for this on my bar card. It's just that is in College Station and not in Dallas. So once it's in Dallas, I can make a Bevo Rita.
It's a nice little 3-pack here. This one's empty, so I don't know who at the office took that. But anyway, yeah, you've got one of these coming to you. So you can make your Bevo Rita an Aggie. You can get me on my Aggie drink. I don't know if it's going to be an Aggie Rita or what we're going to call it.
Once we do it, I'll have me and my friend Peyton Yeager. If anybody knows Peyton Yeager, we're going to do a taste test of whether or not the Aggie Rita or the Bevo Rita is better. And honestly, I have the recipes in my mind. I fear I might like the Aggie Rita better just based on what I'm putting in it. So we'll see.
I might do a version of a ranch water too. Maybe call it a Rev water. For Rev
water, I like that.
Right?
That's creative.
Speaking of Peyton,
put that in a bar in Aggieland.
Exactly. I don't know. There's all those, all the, licensing and stuff. You probably can't call it Rev or Bevo water, but we're gonna try to get away with it. We're gonna see if they want to stop us, they can. But we're gonna make our drink.
BEV-Rita, Bev Rita.
Like a Beverly Rita.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of Peyton, she said after episode 1, I do think she's a little biased. I think we would both agree on that. But she did say that I got walked over a little bit in episode 1 and that I need to step my game up. What'd she say? Are you going to fight back? So this week starts the fighting back, Amanda. So fair warning.
Did you know I used to be a boxing instructor?
No, I did not. I did not know that.
So best of luck.
Okay. That doesn't surprise me at all, though. That's probably good for you. You probably need a heavy bag.
I gotta say, I moved to Amarillo, Texas in 2017, and I just needed something to punch while I was up there. I had nothing better to do with my time in the tumbleweeds.
Honestly, it's better to be the puncher than the punching bag. So
yes.
I'm trying to flip that this week because we had a lot of responses in week 1. I know you and I enjoyed reading them. We thought it was fun. We had a good time in the first episode, and hopefully just keep getting better and better and more interactive and more fun moving forward.
Yeah, and for everybody who listened, thanks so much for listening. Share it with your friends, share it, reshare it in your Instagram story, wherever you can share it. If you have a Longhorn, if you have an Aggie, or if you have somebody that's just obsessed with college sports and is chronically online talking about them, share it with them. We really thank you for listening, and we're really excited about where this thing could go. So,
yeah, I think so too. And I think look, we said a little bit of it last week. This is where the rivalry, this is where it lives. You're still only playing one time a year, one day out of 365, and in obviously the other sports as well. But this is what goes on at every office, at every dinner table, family reunion, you name it, sitting by the pool on the weekend like you're going to be doing with your La Casa tequila that Peyton gets none of. But this is what we do. We talk good-natured trash. And so if you're an Aggie,
most of the time it's good-natured.
It is. Well, I'd be willing to bet that at some point we get heated when things aren't going well for one of our teams.
I will say for every one bad interaction I've had with an Aggie, most of the time there's 9 to counter that.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like that's what kind of makes this rivalry different as well, is the fact that it's just really, I can name very few other rivalries that have the same, just even though you only play one time of the year, everybody's talking about it all year, regardless, even if it's not really relevant.
No
Everybody
doubt.
was talking for it for the last 12 years, 13 years, even when it wasn't really relevant. So,
And by the way, the point of this too is we're going to be trying to score points on each other as this year goes on. That's her, that's me, that's you,
but I don't
that's
think
you.
Billy wants to start keeping score just yet. Was last week a practice round?
It was it was practice. You said you were a boxing instructor. That was what they call sparring. That was just like, the headgears were on. We just, I was just feeling it out. But yeah,
Training round.
we even had some Aggies saying like, "Hey, step it up. You're being too nice." And I'm like, I don't know if y'all realize that was her being nice also. So
yeah, I mean, there's times where he texts me trying to like bring something up when I've had like one too many La Casa tequilas or something, and that's when the real fighting gloves come out, and he's like, "Okay."
yeah, I'm like, so make sure she never has a second drink during the show. Then we'll have problems.
Yeah.
We had some funny comments though in week 1. I know you pulled one up.
Yes. Let's see.
Off the YouTube.
Oh yeah, this was on the YouTube, which I feel like YouTube is always the best place for these kinds of comments. The Belize commented, enjoyed it overall somewhat and the potential future spots, but terrible first showing from our boy Liucci. Yeah, she's a pretty girl, albeit with an evil team affiliation, but for God's sake, stick to your guns, bro, even if you're wrong, especially if you're wrong. Don't let her talk over and lawyer you out of almost every conceivable position and segment on your own channel. And now how I know this guy is like a reasonable dude and the kind of people we love watching this show is his grammar was perfect in that comment. So thank you for the comment. Hopefully Billy took it to heart a little bit. I guess we'll see.
Well, I will say I did. It was good advice. The other good advice was from Evil Mopac, who told me to smile more. He also said it wasn't a fair fight, but and I would agree.
Evil Mopac is my favorite. Honestly, except for when I was actually in college trying to get home from my college job back to West Campus, Mopac is kind of my happy place to sit in traffic now because it means I'm almost to my destination when I'm driving down to Austin. So,
oh man, that's a side of Austin I rarely get to coming from College Station. Listen, those were good pieces of advice. So I'm going to smile more, and I'm going to not get beat on my own channel, as they say. But the other comment had to do what they say, man. They said you had burnt orange, and why wasn't I wearing maroon?
Yeah.
Here's why, guys. This is why.
There's a maroon background.
You see what happens?
I didn't wear burnt orange today, but I did just buy this lovely burnt orange sofa from Crate and Barrel. So that's my burnt orange. I also have some burnt orange that I'm going to pull out a little bit later in the show when we get into some of our conversations.
Okay.
So
really looking forward to that. That seems like a surprise that we didn't talk about. What we did talk about, speaking of Twitter, right, this week, that really sparked up probably, I guess, the most conversation is, and by the way, you got to learn how to log back off of moving goalposts onto Atwell when you start. We don't want the neutral moving goalposts to be talking trash to Aggies or Longhorns, vice versa.
I will say you can tell when it's your lovely social media manager on moving goalposts
versus
when
you
she posts something.
Callie, yeah.
Me. I mean, I try to keep it very mid-centered still, but she's so much better at it than I am.
Well, Arch versus Marcel.
Wait, that's when the surprise comes out, actually, because I have my ready to go for season Arch Manning jersey.
Is a tag still on that thing?
Yeah, a tag's still on that thing.
Might want to leave it.
Texas football mom ordered this for me, so it's the official team one. Very pumped about that, but figured it'd be a good thing to pull out during this segment. I am all in on Arch this year.
You might want to leave the tag on that one in case you have to return it.
Can somebody clip that and save it, and we'll put it in a video bookmark?
No, listen. This will take us right into this because it did, right? It sparked a lot of discussion this week, and I think it has throughout the offseason. And as if these two guys, like, I can only imagine what will happen if if Arch rolls into the horseshoe in week 1 and beats Ohio State, regardless of stats, 400 yards, 200 yards, whatever. If he goes in there and wins, and a couple weeks later Marcel Reed goes into South Bend and in front of touchdown Jesus leads the Aggies to a victory. You can only imagine how much crazier this discussion will get, because right now it's all speculation, projecting, wondering, what's Arch's ceiling? We know it's high. How high is it? How big a jump does Marcel take? But that's what we're doing during the offseason, and we did it this week, Amanda, and got a lot of people talking, didn't it?
It did, and I actually pulled up because, my biggest thing, it is hard to compare these two players just based on the discrepancies, and we really haven't seen Arch that much. I looked at it. We've seen him contribute significantly as far as time, not actual he contributed significantly in the A&M game, but he wasn't on the field the entire time.
Yeah.
So games where he was on the field most of the time, 3 games. Now, Reed, different story there. So it's hard, really, really hard to make these comparisons. But at the end of the day, I pulled the stats.
Okay.
You want to look at the stats?
Yes.
So as far as Arch goes, now, mind you, this is on very, very few. This is just throwing possessions. So he had, 61 attempts. Completion percentage was 67.8%. 939 yards, 9 touchdowns. His long was 75, pretty significant.
Yeah.
6 sacks, 2 interceptions, and he ran 108 on 25, averaged 4.3 per possession, and went for 67 long. Now that is the main difference I found between Arch and Reed as far as stats, because they were actually relatively even as far as these big ones. So Reed's long was 73, 75. They both have really good depth there.
Yeah.
Reed, completion percentage, 61.7%, 1,800 yards, a little bit closer to 1,900 than 1,800, 15 touchdowns, 14 sacks, 6 interceptions. Big thing about the 6 interceptions is it came in the last 5 games. So those are pretty concentrated in his later appearances. Rushed for 547 yards on 116 carries. So he averaged 4.7 yards per carry, which was a bit more than Arch. But I would also accredit that to the fact that Arch was put in a lot of very, very short yardage possessions, like 1 and 2 yard type possessions. So that I don't really think that's a stat you can look at with put much relevance into it. And as far as Reed goes, the best games, and I will call myself out on my mistakes.
No. Allow me. You did.
I will say, forgive me, I did not pay much attention to A&M last season until we actually played them. I don't think I even watched this game. So.
You did do what you don't accuse me of doing. It's what I often do. You just point it out. It's not an accusation if it's true. But you flew into a quick reply, and you didn't fact check yourself before you did it, because you picked the best game he had.
Second half. He came in second half.
You picked the best game he had.
He did not start that game, but he was the reason A&M was able to win.
Well, and it's a big reason, right, Amanda, why you see those type flashes from him and why there's so much reason for excitement. Both of these guys can really run. I think every fan on either side has to know this. Arch ran it in.
Much different from Quinn for Texas.
Yeah, and honestly, I think Reed will be one of the better running quarterbacks we've seen from it. Connor didn't really run. Mac, you got guys that would scramble for first downs. I think Colin Klein could get Marcel as a big part of the design running game, and I'm fascinated to see how much Sark does that with Arch, because he is so big. He's so difficult to tackle. Marcel's more of a make-you-miss guy. You saw that in some games last year, particularly highlight reel play at Florida. But they're both deadly effective. I think as much as you're willing, both those offensive coordinators, as much as they're willing to use their starting quarterback as a running threat.
And I will say, continuing that point, so his biggest games were the LSU turnaround game, Florida, in this, Florida, yes, not a good team. But is that the game Lagway got injured?
No, that was Graham Mertz got injured, and Lagway actually came in. So it was two really young quarterbacks there in the second half.
And then I'm putting in Auburn there, even though that was a lost game, because that wasn't really on him. And I also wanted to point this out that I kind of noticed when I was thinking about this is there were a lot of instances because Quinn caught so much heat last year from people just saying he wasn't as good as everyone said he was. There were so many plays. I can't even think of specific ones where balls were in receivers' hands and they went straight through. This is very similar to what happened to Reed in the Auburn game.
Yeah.
And so just like instances where it's like it should have been there, but it wasn't, and it wasn't his fault.
Well, I'll tell you, there was another drop was in the bowl game where if you look at his numbers in that bowl game, he was really good, and the ball went through Noah Thomas's hands for a touchdown, and instead went off his helmet and turned into an interception. So if
Isaiah Bond did that to us a good few times last year. He was not. I mean, he was not as good as everybody thought he was going to be last year. Golden saved the day for Texas when it came to the receiver position.
Yeah, he did.
But yeah, other than that, he contributed in the Arkansas game, and his only other showings against very good teams were Texas, both USCs.
Yeah.
So the thing is, he had that really, really big spark in the LSU game, and you saw it periodically throughout the rest of the season, but he really didn't step up when it mattered. I mean, the people around him also didn't step up when it mattered. In the Texas game specifically. And I mean, both USCs, it's just, I need to see more consistency from him in that stance. But I mean, also, he's only as good as the people around him are.
Okay. So. Great point on the around him, because I think his two biggest struggles last season came against the two best defenses he faced. And I would call them, we're going to talk a little bit about the Texas defense here in a minute. I would call them both elite defenses last year. We know Texas was, but South Carolina was as well last season. They were ridiculously good. I think a first and a second round pick, a ton of seniors that left. They had they've got one of the best pass rushers in the country coming back this season. So they got after him on the road, and Texas got after him at Kyle Field. And that had a lot to do as well with blocking, receivers not being able to get separation, all those things like you said, the help. Losing Le'Veon Moss in that South Carolina game, who was kind of their bell cow. So when you tie all that in, here's what I love about Marcel, and then I want to tie this back to Arch. Marcel went on the road and was told he was going to start at Florida an hour before the game and went in the swamp and played lights out. He was in the fourth quarter a week later, couldn't make one single mistake against Arkansas. It was the Le'Veon Moss show, but he didn't make a mistake. Talon Green for Arkansas did. And then in those two losses late, you mentioned LSU coming off the bench, which I think shows a ton to spark a team against. And then in those two losses late, he played really well, led A&M back from 21-0 down. If the defense gets a stop, they win. Led A&M to a late touchdown, winning drives really against USC and Auburn. The defense couldn't hold up. Marcel, Amanda, falls into this group of second-year starters that the whole conference needs to see make a jump, and we don't know who's going to make the jump. Is it Marcel? Is it Lagway? Is it Nussmeier? There's another. Those three really stand out. And then on the flip side, it is the first-year starting quarterbacks, starting with Ohio State, who you guys play, but going into Gunnar Stockton, Arch Manning, Ty Simpson at Alabama. I would put Pavia from Vandy into that other group I said.
Yeah.
And Austin Simmons at Ole Miss replacing a first-rounder in Jackson Dart. So there is a ton of similarity as you have all these quarterbacks in the SEC that can they make the year 1 to 2 jump. And I would put even Jackson Arnold in this group over here. And Talon Green at Arkansas. Can he make the 1 to 2 jump? And then there's all these guys that are first-year starters. I don't think there's a single sure thing. And if we're talking ceilings, I will sit here and say very few look as enticing as the guy in that jersey you're holding up. And that's why the excitement is understandable, but I also don't think people need to get upset when people like, whether it's me or whoever, say, tap brakes and maybe dial it down one notch, knowing, yeah, we might be wrong for saying that.
Yeah, I don't even think it's upset. I love criticism going into seasons because Texas does respond well to bulletin board material. So it is what it is. It's all talk at this point.
Yeah.
You don't know anything until the season starts. But I will make a couple points. So this is not completely related to Arch, but somewhat. So Texas, if you remember, Texas played Georgia right after Mississippi State.
Yeah.
And I just kind of remembered this when I was looking back at all this stuff. Could the slow offense in that Georgia game be contributed to the fact that they were getting Quinn back, gotten used to having Arch at the quarterback? Could consistency be the key there to having the success against those bigger teams in the SEC? So that's one point. Major upside also, like Arch obviously has a major upside. I did see this play that was shared. It was Texas against Mississippi State when Arch was starting.
Yeah.
And it was it was 50-yard touchdown play.
Yeah.
Yes. And there were people clowning in the comments like worst defense in the SEC, which yes, but at the same time, whether it's a worse defense or not, he's getting a ton of pressure. It's a broken play. He is hit while he is thrown and completes a 50-yard pass downfield for a touchdown. That kind of play, just in general, gives him a very high ceiling, in my opinion, as far as optimism goes.
Yeah.
That again could be crucial in the fact that Texas's offensive line has lost the most of any position group on the team this season. So that's like their biggest question mark going into this season. And I also looked at this. It's kind of poetic that Arch Manning was a starter for Texas's first ever game in the SEC. So
that is crazy.
It could be poetic.
That is pretty crazy. I think that's a great point, though, if you're a Longhorn fan and you're looking back to that Georgia game last year. I didn't think about that was the first game of Quinn coming back.
And coming off of an injury is not easy when you're an athlete. Yeah. It's really not. So,
am I wrong, or was that what was that injury? Was that a shoulder?
That was his
chest?
Oblique strain.
Oh, yeah.
I think.
That's tough.
And then he had an ankle issue too. I'm pretty sure.
Well, the ankle was against A&M, which is why I still don't understand how he ran untouched 50 yards down the field.
Every time he would take off running, I got concerned. Yeah. And it was almost, he looked so slow.
For Longhorn fans that will know this, and Aggie fans, we hate this. The two most annoying, you can take all the Vince Young runs, you can take all the Colt McCoy runs, I don't care. The two most annoying plays to watch as an Aggie fan involving Texas quarterbacks running was Quinn going 50 on a bum ankle early in this game last year, which was a big field position swing play that should have been an early dead drive. And then the second,
forgot about that's just funny.
Untouched. The guy missed on the edge pressure, and he's like, "Oh my God, there's no one here." The other one was Case McCoy at the end of that game where he was just running for his life, and Aggies just chose not to tackle him. So yeah, you can those two plays. Maybe more than
I think what's funny about that is Quinn probably thought like I'm about to need to slide or something to not get hit, and it's like, oh, open field. Yes,
absolutely.
I guess I can try to gimp run this.
Kind of reminded me a little of different, but similar to the way Johnny going down the sideline in that Cotton Bowl, and the OU guys thought they pushed him out of bounds, and he was like, "All right, you didn't. I'm just going to go ahead and run this in."
That's funny.
And note to defenders: pay attention. Don't let the slow quarterback run, but not going to be a problem for A&M or Texas this year. Two really fast quarterbacks that are going to get it done in different ways. And again, we're moving on from quarterbacks. I think the quarterback position is going to be the story in college football this year. There is just not that guy. We didn't even mention OU with John Mateer, who's one of the most proven, but guess what? New school. New conference. You're not Washington State anymore. So I think that position, and you've mentioned Ohio State, Notre Dame with a new starting quarterback. They're going to have to face Miami and A&M in September. They're a title contender. Georgia. So circle this one team one coach that people don't, they say, oh, he doesn't get it done. Well, all he did last year was get to the semifinals and come within an overtime of playing for the national championship. Circle Drew Aller in Penn State. I know he's not flashy. I know Penn State's not flashy. They're going to probably get it done more at the running game. But James Franklin in Penn State, in my opinion, like if I'm picking a team with the odds coming out of the Big Ten and with their playoff experience last year, and I think Aller's a little better than people give him credit for, I really like Penn State this year. So you can bookmark that one, and we'll see how this goes.
Okay.
Sorry,
We'll
Nittany
see.
Lions, but we just
I don't
said
think it's a terrible take, so tentative bookmark there. We'll see.
All
We
right.
haven't put it on Twitter yet, so I can't technically bookmark it.
So we talked about defense.
We did talk about defense this week, and I sent your producers an image to just kind of explain how that conversation went.
When you and I talked about it.
Of what we talked about and just how the conversation ended. And so I don't know if a lot of people remember the name Ethan Burke in relevance to the Texas game. The complete broken play, 4th and 1, beautiful for one fan base, atrocious for another fan base.
Yeah,
But
that's
anyway,
kind of so you're saying that's how it went, but I'm here to
try to defend himself. So
yeah.
Billy earlier this week just said off cuff that like, oh yeah, Texas's defense is going to be great next year. I'd put them in the top 10 to 15 of teams in the league. 10 to 15. Okay.
First
Yes.
timeout. We're going to do timeouts every once in a while. This is my first timeout.
Okay.
I said they're going to be at least 10 to 15. But it goes to the point that we're about to debate.
At least 10 to 15 is if say Texas defense is ranked 13th in the nation for a team that is ranked in the top 5 in the preseason poll.
You call that
and
a fail.
Defense is supposed to be our strength going into the season. That those two things don't align. That's
fair. That's fair.
Some math for you.
Here's my thing, and there's been a lot of, you've been sending it to me, we've been talking about it, there's been a lot of love shown.
Hold on.
Okay.
I need you to just go ahead and put on your maroon goggles for me.
Hold on. I don't have glasses. All right, let's go. Goggles are on. All right, here's what I was going to say. And by the way, before we move on, A&M has to make a massive jump defensively. Mike Elko's talked about it. He's changed the structure of it. If the Aggies are going to be in any way, shape, or form a surprise in the SEC this year, two things have to happen. Marcel Reed has to make that jump. And the second thing, in my opinion, is that defense, as a unit, you're offended by the 10 to 15 comment. Not offended, but you know what I mean. You took umbrage with it. And
I took issue with it.
To me, that A&M, like, if you give me a top 20 A&M defense this year with a big step from Marcel Reed, I think this is a team that's a playoff contender. Those are two really big ifs. They lost 3 defensive linemen in the first 2 rounds of the NFL draft, and they weren't good on that side of the ball when they needed to be last year. Going back to Texas, there's a lot being said. Greg McElroy ranked them. I respect the hell out of what Greg does. He ranked them as the number 1 defense in the country for him. PFF, I'm looking at it. PFF is the one thing that all fan bases, it's either legitimate or it sucks. It just depends on what they say about your team and your players.
I think I know what article you're referencing. Read the specific article title for me.
It says Texas returns one of the top rosters in the country.
Okay, wait, that's not the title I was thinking it was. There's a different one that says it's like specifically defensive line or something.
Oh, well, this has them as the number 1 ranked linebacker group and the number 1 defensive back group in the country, and that's per PFF. And I know you had sent me, here it is right here. You had sent me this.
Did you just print out my mean text message?
Yeah, I did. You sent me FPI's best projected offenses and defenses of 2026, and they projected Texas with the best offense and defense. Now, we could talk about offense some other time because I just have a hard time.
I don't know if I'd put them as the best. There's too many unknowns for me to put them as the best offensive at this point, and that's just my completely unbiased take there.
Anytime you lose 4 starting O linemen, I want to say
And you have a new quarterback, 4 starting linemen, new quarterback. We've seen him, but yeah, we've talked about that.
They have them at 1. So I know you've got counters, and I know you had sent them, and one of them was actually I was like, okay, but here's what I think. I think when I look at what Texas lost, they lost we talked about this morning on TexAgs Radio. They lost a Thorpe Award winner in Jahdae Barron. They lost, I thought Makuba was a game changer for you guys last year. The transfer from Clemson, I thought he changed games on the back end. Mm-hmm. I know they return, what do y'all call him, Mookie? I know they returned Taft. I know
Michael Taft.
Yeah, I know they returned.
Michael Taft, just because
you love him. You love him.
And I love Michael Taft.
He's a damn good player. And I know
he was a walk-on. He's the best walk-on story you could really ask for.
I would have taken him as a walk-on when I watched him in that state title game against Southlake. The one-handed interception. He was a ball player. Still is.
Yep.
McDonald, I think, is an impact safety. I think the Aggies have one, too, that no one talks about. Watch out for number 25 this year, Dalton Brooks. I think he's going to be a special player, and he'll need to be. And then, but I think they lose a lot back there, and I think losing Collins and Broughton, who were just grown men. I know they went portal heavy at D-tackle, but those two guys had played a ton of football at Texas. They both had their best years last year together. And I think the Horns were elite on defense last year. We saw that at Kyle Field. But I just think they lost enough to where I think we can see a step back defensively, and that still be, like I said, a top 10 type of defense in the country. And you're right.
I need you to rank 9 teams above Texas for me real quick defensively.
9? I don't know if I could do it.
Top 10.
Okay, well, what if they're 4th?
Then you'd say, I think they're top 5.
Or 6th. What if they're 6th?
I still would like you to rank 5 teams above them defensively.
I mean, I always like what Georgia and Ohio State do defensively.
Okay, well, you need to not bury the lead here. What is Ohio State replacing? 7 defensive players and their defensive coordinator. What is Texas replacing? 5 defensive players and continuing with their defensive coordinator. Yes, Ohio State is replacing it with a great defensive coordinator, but continuity in these leagues makes a difference.
I agree. Consistency at coordinator is big, and that's.
But okay, can you 7 versus 5? Which one's the bigger number?
7.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
that's. I agree. 7. I agree. Losing 7. I love Caleb Downs, Texas. I love Anthony Hill for Texas.
You know who else lost 7 players on the defense?
Who?
Georgia.
Okay. I'll take Kirby Smart over anyone, and that's not.
But do you know where Kirby Smart's defense ended last season at?
No.
23rd ranked in the country.
Did they really? Who'd they give up?
Yes, they took a major step back in defense. I think they gave up something. I think their points per game was like 20 points per game.
Bama got them really good. I think Ole Miss did a number on them in Oxford. I don't know. Maybe did you guys get a lot of yards in that SEC title game?
I don't remember the score.
Anyway,
it was 22-19 in the
That's
game.
Okay. I'll admit that's surprising. Those are surprising numbers. And yeah, I believe in Matt Patricia. That's my guy. Love Matt Patricia. Got to know him at the Super Bowl like 4 days before he took the Ohio State job. We were talking about how crazy the college game is these days with NIL and portal and all that, and then like a week later or less, he's Ohio State's DC. It felt like so, but yeah, I mean it's a change, and they had a great D coordinator who, by the way, is now at Penn State. To add to my whole Penn State hype train. Okay, Amanda, you're right. I don't know that I could today give you 4, 6, 8 defenses. I just think Texas defense could take a slight step back and still be really good. I never said they weren't going to be really good.
I think Texas also replaces some significant players through transfers.
Yeah.
So adding in some new transfers, Travis Shaw from UNC, Cole Brevard from Purdue. So some new, and I mean, you can say what you want to about the transfer portal, but the transfer portal is why Texas won some games last year. Look at Matthew Golden.
Golden
1
and
year
Makuba were
made
incredible.
the biggest difference in the world.
Yeah.
Like most impactful receiver on the Texas offense by far.
Who'd they have the year before that did so much out of the portal? Who was it the season before? They had a really key guy that I thought won them a lot of games at receiver. Who's the receiver? They had a receiver. From Georgia, A.D. Mitchell.
Yes,
yeah. So
Mitchell, yes.
And I think that's the way to do the portal, by the way. And I think that's what Elko's.
And I thought Isaiah Bond would make a similar impact to A.D. Mitchell, but that wasn't. I mean, Isaiah Bond had some really good games, but he had some moments where he really should have been better. There were moments, I mean, where if he had made the play he was supposed to make, one, people wouldn't be hating on Quinn so much. Two, could have turned the tide in some games that really needed a couple more points on the board. Georgia. Okay, so let's summarize before we move this on. So this conversation here went just about as well as this did for you?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. You put up a nice little goal line stand there, so we'll keep it moving. We'll keep it moving,
I mean, just add me in, coach. Add me to the roster. Because I mean,
yeah, you called up a good defense there to defend.
I did call up a good play there. You really, I mean, at some point I even gave you a warning for this one, but you still just walked right on into it. Kind of how I walked right into Ethan Burke in that play. So
you know what I did? I kept trying to run it right up the middle 3 times in a row. I didn't get creative. I didn't hit you with a play action fade.
Send this segment to Elko.
Yeah. Like, hey, watch out for the. No, you're going to save what you're going to do, because I know you, is you're going to save this. And if they finish, number 1 or 2 or 3 in defense, or if they, play some lights out game against A&M or in an SEC title game or Ohio State or Georgia, you're just going to keep bringing it up. And that's fine. That's what I put myself at risk for on this show. Just like, you did with your Marcel take. You're going to slip up sometimes. Or God forbid.
I want you to find a place where I've said that I think Marcel is a bad quarterback.
You haven't.
Isn't going to live up to the hype, because I have given him his credit where it's due. I have just said he hasn't shown enough consistency, in my opinion. He has shown spurts of being a really solid quarterback. He just needs the tools around him.
You and I are on the same page with the quarterback thing, both sides. But I will say, God forbid, Texas should finish like 12th in total defense this year. I'm going to be there to come pull this up and be like, and by the way,
I finally got one.
Got one. They had a really good defense, just not the best in the country. Let's one thing though, yeah, Texas has had some really key portal additions without overloading in the portal. Now, I think they kind of had to overload this year at defensive tackle. We'll see how that works out, but it was just a single position where the cupboard, they kind of got caught in that little in-between. I know they signed, Big Justice from Georgia this year, who's going to be a monster, but they kind of got caught in between where they kind of needed to really reload on the defensive interior, which is going to be a big tell for that defense this year. Are they going to be elite in there? And going back to our discussion, Elko's been the same way at A&M, though. And he said it to me, he said it on air. We've talked about it aside from on air. And his philosophy is such that, like, look, you look at Texas, you look at Ohio State, you look at Notre Dame, you look at Penn State last year, the whole Final Four, and they were portal selective. But generally, those rosters were recruited from high school and developed within their system, within their culture. And he believes, obviously Sark does too, that is the way. I think I heard Sark maybe even say that this week. But they both believe.
He was on a panel this week talking about that kind of thing.
With Jeremy Hills and those guys.
This will be last week now. This will come out on Tuesday, so this was last week.
Little side note, last year flying back from the Super Bowl, I'm sitting on the plane and we're about 30 minutes back from the flight from Vegas, and Jeremy and I get to talking, and then we realize who each other are. I totally remember him as a recruit back in the day out of Elsick. and we're going on and on for the whole flight. Just great conversation. I love what he's doing down there in Austin, both with with his business and also with that kind of player panel podcast that they do. I think they do a great job.
Hey, you're burying the lead, Billy. Come on.
I'm complimenting. I'm giving props to the work. The lead here is that Elko and Sark both are very like-minded in how they want to attack the portal and also how they want to win through high school recruiting. And right now, they both are in a big way.
Yes.
Both fan bases should be really happy about where they're at, particularly A&M, who's really rebounded, and they had a good class in the first full cycle under Elko, top 10. Now they're really surging, sitting right now.
I do feel like every time I log on to Twitter that it's like a new person has committed to A&M. So
yeah, they're on a heater right now. This is their
they are
hot
very
streak.
much on a heater right now.
So with both schools, Texas just surged into the top 10. A&M sitting at 1 or 2, depending on who you ask. And I keep having to tell Aggies, having the number 1 class is not a bad thing. It was a bad thing once. That doesn't mean it always is. You still want to be as high as you can in those rankings, year in and year out. It's how you win. But you had, I thought,
battered Aggie syndrome coming in.
That's exactly what it is. And Amanda, you're right. Some would say I've got battered Atwell syndrome on this show sometimes.
You don't even have to change the initials.
It's true. I shouldn't have just said that. Why did I do that? That's
That'll be a short clip.
They're going to be. You're going to clip that to that one sentence. Perfect. There's your highlight. Last week, your highlight was "You're welcome." What did you say when I said the SEC got better?
Oh yeah, the SEC I said the SEC got even more elite. You're welcome.
Yeah, you've got a little best of one. You're definitely going to win in the one-liner in the quip department. But you had a really good question. I thought that I know where 100. Everybody's going to fall on either side, but I thought it was a really good question about recruiting.
Yeah. So right now you're seeing a lot of just. Like I said, every time I log into Twitter, I see a new Aggie commitment. So right now on the recruiting trail, who would you rather have, Sark or Elko? I feel like at this point, they've kind of recruited in different ways. Obviously, they're both kind of leaning into the recruiting and growing up into the system rather than just like completely like throwing bags at the transfer portal. But that's a question. What are you thinking there?
It's a great question. A&M, Texas fans don't want to acknowledge that A&M's won some real head-to-heads every time.
They have, yeah.
And KJ Edwards being, one of the biggest here lately, and we'll talk about who they got recently, but every time one team gets the other fan base, what do? What do they start moving? Goalposts. Recruiting is a big moving goalpost thing. So we're both doing it. Here's the bottom line.
This is a time of year where you start to feel really creepy because you're paying so much attention to high schoolers.
Oh, man.
Some people should feel really creepy. If you're one of those people that goes into a kid's replies after they recruit to a school you don't like, being disgusting, you need to throw your device off of a balcony. Like there's no excuse for that. That's disgusting.
If you're one of these people that complain, and I also think the other one is the fans that openly beg when a recruit says, who should I pick?
It's weird.
Like, reevaluate it. Follow it, enjoy it, understand the importance of it, but don't insert yourself into it. And don't. Don't get
emotionally invested into a 17-year-old's decision on where he's going to college.
Yeah, don't say that too loud, though, because we got a website that really, a lot of our content involves that. But you're right. Like, don't get too emotional where you have to reply.
You can be invested in the recruiting process, but don't sit here and blow up a kid's replies.
No doubt.
Invested level.
I hate that. But look, both these coaches, they're going about it in different ways. Look, it's funny. I thought the GOAT thing with the players was hilarious. Some people don't understand, and they thought that was some kind of bad look for A&M. Those guys that they did that with are like elite players. They're basically saying, you guys are the GOAT. Here's a picture with the GOATs. I thought it was clever. It was funny.
I think that's funny. What I think is cringy is in every single recruitment pick I've seen from Oklahoma, they have the horns down in.
Yeah.
Which we could talk about the horns down all day, but like I just feel like it's a moot point at this point because who cares?
And the
Who
bigger
cares at the
thing
end
is
of the day?
that when the OU coaches are doing it. Like,
Yeah,
I'm like,
it's
you
just,
guys play 12 games. You play
and
Michigan. You play
also there's some
Alabama.
schools that don't have a super recognizable hand sign.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
Do your own hand sign. That's the thing about recruiting to the school should be about the school you're going to.
Yeah.
And also, who won that game last year?
Yeah.
Who had one of their worst showings in 10 years last year?
My horns down philosophy as an Aggie is if you want to do it during, I like it in the stands during that game when you're playing Texas. And if a Texas player scores a touchdown and does a thumbs down, it doesn't bother me one bit. I'm like, I hope my Aggies score on the next play and do a horns down.
Yeah, just use it as motivation. Oh, they disrespected us. We'll score on the next one. That's what sports are.
Yeah.
But doing it in your recruiting trail when you got destroyed by that team last year.
Yeah, no, they overdo it for sure. And it is. I don't like it. But it's funny. One side is doing pictures with the goats. The other side's got Lambos on the field, and it fits. It is just it's both are clever. It fits the all gas, no brakes. It fits like A&M, and you guys are the goats. Like, I love it.
Moving to College Station, you'll probably see more goats than Lambos.
See, I'm telling you, I have editing power over here. You're gonna be like, that's out.
I'll just have to bribe
that is out.
Please clip.
Yeah, I'm keeping your tequila. That's what I'm gonna do. No, that was good. That was good.
Wait, that one has to.
See, Mopac's like smile
even
more.
You're laughing. See, they told you needed to smile more, and I'm making it happen.
You're good job. Good job. That's funny. We're going to just leave this up. Can I go back to what I was saying? They're both kicking ass. Their styles are working. Here are the similarities. High school over portal to supplement. Both A&M and Texas are going extremely national in their recruiting. That they're using the entire country, not just Texas and the SEC footprint. They're going coast to coast. A&M's doing work out west, so is Texas. One big battle. What's the big battle upcoming? A big battle that's coming up. Oh, he didn't listen. Oh, here it is. Big battle coming up. I'm just looking for the date on the 4th of July. Bryce Perry Wright, a D tackle.
4th of July is a big weekend.
Yeah, A&M and Texas both in that one. If you're looking for the Aggies upcoming, like recent ones of note since we last did the podcast. They got 2 offensive tackles they really liked in Avery Morcho, Ridge Point, more of like an upside raw potential guy, and Zayden Krempin from Prosper, who Texas, Michigan, LSU. Aggies wanted him for a long time. Both Texas and A&M cleaned up with like borderline 5-star edges, right? You guys, A&M got Tristan Givens from Columbus, Georgia. And then Texas with a big one last week as well.
Yep. And then Texas, I think the biggest, so you're seeing these rankings. My mindset at this point is it's June.
Yeah.
You got to look at these rankings of recruiting rankings with a big old grain of salt, because you also have to look at the number of recruits each team has gotten. So obviously A&M sitting at what, 22, 21?
21 as we sit here. Well, that's going to, it's crazy. We're recording. It's going to go out a couple days, and both teams are going to add commitments by then.
Yeah.
So we have to be careful.
Texas, what is A&M ranked at right now? Number 4 recruiting?
It depends who 4, 2, 1, like these services are all top 5 consensus.
24/7.
Threatening 1. Look.
Oh yeah, I'm seeing 4 on 24/7 right now, but it's real close.
Here's what jumps out at me, Amanda. A&M adds 2 high 4-star, low 5-star edge Tristan Givens, 5-star corner Brandon Arrington, which was a massive win over Oregon. High 4-star running back number 3 in the country, KJ Edwards. That was head to head with the Longhorns.
Yeah, and that's interesting because that's Carthage. I feel like Carthage has been a.
They might add a second one from Carthage soon too, but. Sam Roseborough.
I do love me some Carthage. That's where was my first TV market.
Was it really?
Shreveport, Carthage. We covered Carthage. I loved going to Carthage.
Forgot you're a big Shreveporter. So look, but here's Texas. 5-star edge Richard Wesley. That was an Oregon head-to-head from L.A. and a 4-star D lineman from freaking Birmingham, right in the heart of Alabama, Auburn country. Vodney, Cleveland. So with those two, Amanda, Texas continues to really load up on the defensive line, and I know they're in on a couple of elite offensive tackles in John Turntine and Ojo, two guys from North Texas who could really, I think, just those two by themselves could take this class into threatening the top 5. And then the Aggies, both teams between now and like mid-July, so like the next 2.5 weeks. I mean, I think both teams have about 8 to 10 really significant decisions coming up that if they win.
Yeah, but I mean, Aggies can't add 8 of 10. And also, I'm holding Nacho now, so.
Oh, God, don't. The attack cat.
He's not. Did you call him fat?
Attack cat.
Oh,
fat. He's not. Is he fat?
No, he is of a healthy weight, according to the vet.
I'm at a healthy weight, according to the vet.
He's at 14 pounds. He is a long boy, so certified long boy.
I feel like Luna gets ignored in this deal. I really do.
He doesn't like being held, so that's he just, if I'm not giving him attention for long enough, he has to make sure he gets some. So this is the podcast's introduction to Nacho.
This is also, as you see this is why I need to not, as the original guy that messaged the show and some people on TextAg said, I need to not consistently lose Battlestar. I don't need to be on air getting ratioed by an actual living cat lady.
A person holding
a lot of commitments, though, between now and mid-July. And so, yeah, the Aggies can't take all of them, and they won't win all of them. They're going to win some, lose some, and Texas will too. But I think my point of saying all this is I think by the time we get to mid-July, you're going to see both of these classes squarely in the top 5, and I don't think they're going anywhere. I think Texas and Texas A&M both finish with top 5 classes, and I don't think Elko or Sark really, truly care if it's 1, if it's 2, if it's 3, if it's 4. But, like, the goal every year is just recruit top 5, recruit as well as anyone in the country, and then you have to believe in your coaching and your development. And Texas has been doing that, and that's why you and I will argue when I say that they replace too much in the NFL. You'll say they've been recruiting lights out for how many years, and that's what A&M needs to do. So they went top 10. Now they need to go top 5 to supplement that. But a lot to be excited about for both teams, right?
Yeah, I think so. And there's only so much discrepancy between a top 1 class and a top 3 class.
Yeah.
We can throw that into the, we'll have this segment coming up shortly, but the moral victories category of who got the number 1 class versus who got the number 3 class.
Yeah.
So maybe that'll come up again down the road.
All right.
But speaking of new segments, we're moving on to my favorite segment of the show. I don't think it's Billy's favorite segment.
I don't even know why I agreed to it, but yes.
You never retweeted the one from last week like you said you would.
Oh, okay. So let's have an on-air production meeting. How do I retweet it? Do I have to like quote tweet it and say?
You quote tweet yourself.
Okay.
And you can provide commentary. You can explain yourself.
I got you. Or just say, hey, I'm dug in on this one. I've got no explanation, but I'm retweeting it.
Yeah, no explanation, but it's staying.
They printed this out for me. I have not looked at them yet, so I don't know what's coming.
Okay, so we're going to read off number 1 here. And this is just, I did a quarterback themed one this episode because I thought that was relevant based on our Marcel Reed and Arch Manning discussion. So this first one is from June of 2022, which, if you can remember, is about the time Arch Manning committed to Texas.
It was like pre-COVID almost.
Huh? Pre-COVID?
Like damn near pre-COVID.
2 years after COVID.
I know.
Anyways, so here's what Billy had to say. Fast and Furious 15, Arch Manning and Quinn Ewers QB battle for the Aston Martin pink slips.
I mean, I kind of, you know what? I'm deleting that, but there's only one reason why. It's funny, but it's lame. It's like dad humor. It's just bad. I'm looking back on it and I go, that's like one I would make fun of someone for trying That was a force. I'm deleting that because it was a force. Fast and Furious 15. I mean, it tied in. We just mentioned the Lambos. It just, if I'm going to try to be a comedian, I do need to do better than that. But it kind of, I think there would have been some Texas fans in the final month of the season that would have said, we want to see them race those. I don't know who races Aston Martins, but there were, I think.
Go to an F1 race or something.
Yeah, that's true. They would have wanted.
I don't know anything about F1, so somebody will probably say that's not the kind of car.
I know. I'm like trying to not. But yeah, I mean, I think there were some. To be honest, there were probably some people in Austin that were towards the end of the year last year were like, let me see what Arch could do in this situation. And we've talked about that a lot. But I'm going to delete it because it was just a shitty attempt at humor. It wasn't funny, lame. I feel like it's like a 60-year-old dad joke.
That might be a recurring theme here, but anyways.
All right, your second one.
Moving on to the second one. So this is from February of 2023.
Okay.
So Texas at A&M on Thanksgiving weekend in 24. Weigman versus Arch. Sign me the F up. Fire, fire, fire.
Didn't work out that way, did it? Both quarterbacks I had wrong. And said it's Reed versus Ewers.
You were just counting Ewers out at that point.
Yeah, when was that tweeted? It doesn't show on mine. When was that?
That was in 2023. So you really didn't think highly of Ewers, I guess.
Damn, maybe. See, and you guys all think I hate Arch. Obviously, I have had him. I think
it's just a mutual feeling towards any quarterback that is wearing burnt orange, probably.
You're probably onto something, but no.
Meanwhile, if Arch Manning was playing at A&M, he would be the next coming of Johnny Manziel. So,
if you say you did say that this week, and look, Wigman's an example. I absolutely talked up Connor after his first. Okay, I'm gonna have an on-air confessional here. An admission.
I'm gonna have to have you. Okay, I was about to say I'm gonna have to charge you for therapy bills at this point.
No, this isn't therapy. This is just me admitting I kind of did the same thing with Weigman, right? That I'm doing with Arch. Connor's freshman year, he started against. Now there's a little tougher teams for sure. He started against Ole Miss and lost, played lights out. And then he started against LSU. He made some real plays. A couple of those throws to Moose Muhammad were incredible. But that was the Devon A-Chain game. But he beat a top 5 LSU team and was lights out against Jackson Dart and Ole Miss. But it was a 2-game sample size, really, and because what we all kind of threw out was how bad he and the team looked against a 4-8 or 3-9 Auburn team. Mm-hmm. So it was a small sample size, and I went all in on that hype train, much like it's happening there. And I was all in on Connor going into last year. But you can save. So I'm gonna retweet this one from the standpoint of I haven't given up on Connor Weigman being a really good quarterback. It's just not going to happen here. Yeah, and I hope it happens for him. I'm rooting for him. It didn't work out here. It's kind of like Haynes King. Didn't work out for him. He's gone to Georgia Tech, and it's been really good. And he's the one that got beat out by none other than Connor Weigman. So I'm hoping that this narrative
work out.
Yeah, and you mentioned Texas quarterbacks, and you were in school during a carousel of guys that tantalized, couldn't get it done.
I have a fun story about a Texas quarterback from when I was in school. So David Ash, sweet David Ash. He had a marketing class right before my advertising class. And I was on crutches my first semester at Texas, the entire semester, because I played college soccer, for those that don't know, and I had a very intensive knee surgery that ended my soccer career. But I was on crutches, and David Ash, I think, was on some kind of scooter thing. He had just gotten injured. But every time he left that class, he made sure to hold the door open for me so I could crutch in as his fellow cripple. So
that sounds like something Haynes King would do, if I'm being honest. That sounds exactly like something Haynes would do, who, by the way, I'm really rooting for. Listen, I would have held the door open for you too. I think a lot of Aggies would. It's not just a David Ash, but
poor guy. I just feel bad for the amount of concussions he got.
Yeah.
I mean, he was one of those that just didn't want to give up, but for his own health, he had to. And
yeah,
that's just sad at the end of the day.
Well, and look, that it is sad, and he was a good player, he was a great recruit, and had some good moments at Texas, I think, early on. But there's been when you were there until right up until Quinn Arch, right, and we're projecting Arch.
It was depressing the entire time I was there.
Yeah, from Colt until right now, right? And
I can't even remember. Well, I mean, we had a little Case McCoy moment in there.
Yeah, I call that a moment.
We had a little Case McCoy happiness.
Yeah.
And I think that was my senior year of high school.
Really?
Yeah, that was the one good thing he did. But yeah, I'll say, I mean, the main quarterback I remember from my college experience was Tyrone Swoops. And those Swoops had his moments. Not my favorite.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we had some
Ellinger. We're forgetting Ellinger.
I was going to say, I don't have really any positive Texas quarterback memories until we got Ellinger. Yeah. Even though Ellinger had some really, it wasn't his season, it was the entire team season. He had heart. He was a great player. You put any other team, any one of the top 5 teams around him in the country, he would have been stellar. He was like I said with Marcel Reed, good quarterbacks are victims of the tools around them. So that was Sam. But I do think Sam was an integral part in bringing Texas back to being a successful team, of just having that kind of leader going into the next era.
And you talk about that. A&M had a couple of those guys that were really good quarterbacks without a lot around them, in terms of maybe they had one good season each, McGee, Stephen McGee, Gerard Johnson. Then you went back-to-back, Tannehill, Johnny Manziel, obviously Heisman. And then there's really been a revolving door marred by injuries, other than Kellen Mond, who had a 3-year start and stint. So they're trying to get some of that consistency. How do you win when you don't have consistency at the quarterback position? The answer is you don't in the SEC. So
yeah, that's the thing with A&M. It's like I can hardly peg many A&M quarterbacks' names in the past couple years other than Kellen Mond.
Yeah.
Just because of the inconsistency at the position, and just I think that's just a crucial thing.
Yeah.
That's why I do feel like Marcel Reed could be a big shot at being that consistent name that brings success and leadership, but we'll have to see.
Well, and you thought it was Wigman, and it wasn't. And the guy that stepped in for him as we started the show had some real high moments. And here's the deal, Amanda. To me, it needs to be Marcel Reed. A&M, more than anything else, needs consistency at the starting quarterback position. You look at Ole Miss and Jackson Dart, and I watched Wigman go toe-to-toe with him a couple of years ago as a freshman, and one guy got hurt several times, and the other guy was a warrior and left as a first-round pick. So they need that. And I think.
Right, and we're gonna have to pull out the Billy buzzer quite yet?
Oh, yeah. What was that?
Okay, so
you're really going to do that, aren't you?
We're going to break this out next show. Maybe we can get a company to sponsor this. We're going to pull out a Billy buzzer. So when Billy does these rants where he can't wrap up his point, I'm going to have a little buzzer that's just the Billy buzzer where we can just turn him off real quick. So if you are a company that wants to sponsor a buzzer that can just get Billy to shut up, please hit us up in our email.
Every time you
post podcast@gmail.com.
Every time you use it, you just hit it and go, that was the Billy buzzer
I can
brought
put
to
your
you by
face on it too.
brought to you by our good friends at wherever.
The University Co-op.
Yeah, Texas sponsors it. Brought to you by the Texas X's. Or my co-host, I said it earlier to you, Nuno might
I'm
pay to
sure
sponsor.
There's Aggies that probably will want to slam that button every so often.
Absolutely. So final segment by you this week. We'll revisit one of the topics that we had next week. We're we'll banter it around. But the last one for you, something that you thought of as we both watched something transpire in Omaha this week.
This was a competitor for the name of this show as well, of should we have named it this instead? Because this is something I think both of these fan bases, especially Texas in the years since the Colt McCoy era, until there's now actually some success to point to, and A&M with some years since, when's the last time y'all won a national championship? Never mind.
Never heard it. There's a Titanic meme, I think, that applies there.
Anyways, so moral victories is what this is called. So not actual W's that you can put into a column or get a trophy for, but, you know, makes you feel a little fuzzy inside when you got nothing else. So the first one on this list is actually one for both Texas and Texas A&M. It is, so we just had the College World Series wrap up, LSU, real power in college baseball at this point, but guess who they lost to this season? Both Texas and Texas A&M. So basically we're national champions,
co-national champs. I love it. I hate LSU, but I also have so many LSU friends. I really can't.
I mean, I can't even. Before we were in the SEC, LSU was my SEC team because, like I said, I lived in Shreveport for way too many years. I mean, 1 year is too many to live in Shreveport, Louisiana. But that being said, I did make a lot of friends in Shreveport. And the cool thing about Louisiana is everybody in that state, for the most part, loves LSU. So you spend enough time. That's where my first college was in Louisiana. You spend enough time. There's a couple pictures you can find me from a sorority event in an LSU jersey. I've been to Baton Rouge many times. I've always loved the spirit. So I can't say I hate LSU. I hate that we beat them and they won the national championship, but is what it is.
I hate that A&M was within a run of doing that last year, and then I had to see all my LSU people, and then all the LSU people that just consistently talk trash. They all got to celebrate what I was up there in Omaha thinking. I think it was like the 7th inning of A&M Tennessee, and the Aggies were up 1-0. I was talking with Hayden Schott yesterday, one of the A&M players on that team, and he was like, "Man," and we were talking about that game.
I think I have a tweet from that time period where it was around that time. I was like, "All right, congrats, Aggies! You're getting your first major national championship." And man, I must have jinxed it.
Yeah, you did. 7th inning, 1-0, and we were both talking about it, like Tennessee was the better team, and I think everybody knew it. But you're like, "Oh, wait a second, we're 3 innings away." I was like, "Could we just, of all the 3-inning runs?"
I think I actually went to bed and I woke up and I was like, "Oh."
Oh, so you
what
did.
What did y'all do this time?
You did jinx it. I got it. And I'll tell a story on Texags Radio next week to the Aggies. Hayden told me a pretty funny story with that involved Morgan Wallen at the exact same time that Richard Zane, our reporter, and Slosh had their now infamous, famous exchange in the presser. Hayden Schott was out there with in a little funny interaction with Morgan Wallen right on the heels of that loss. But I'm sitting here going, "Damn it, LSU won." I'll give them credit. They are the premier program in college baseball for the last 30, 40 years. 40 years, I think, 8 championships, and two of the last 3. At least SEC dominance is still going. So there's a moral victory. What's your other one before we close out? You said you had 2.
The other moral victory, I think this is only an A&M moral victory. So this is
great.
All you guys, and I don't think, I will say, if you were to ask any person in the fan base other than the person that is responsible for the Aggies social media account, I don't think they would have posted this either. The 15th place in the Director's Cup tweet from the athletic department.
Yeah.
And I mean, the number of likes on that post says it all as far as how much Aggie fans were proud of that result. And I mean, some of the responses, because like I retweet, when I retweet stuff like this, I'm not like tossing jabs at Aggie fans. I'm just, and in this post I said, like, I have to think that fans of this team do not appreciate this post, which
we did.
If that was my team, I would not appreciate that post. And then there's people in my replies, well, Texas plays in beach volleyball and rowing. Well, guess what? Stanford plays 6 sports.
You do know I said that, right? That was you doing my voice. I said that. But it was just a joke.
Then
Look.
I guess I'm mimicking you. I guess you're that idiot in my reply. So,
all right, listen. I hated that they tweeted that at 15. I don't know if everyone makes some agreement that they're going to post their. OU posted number 9.
What you said is like SEC doesn't play the sports that made Texas win when there are SEC schools that play those sports.
Rowing and.
I'm sorry, College Station doesn't have a pretty body of water to row in.
We're going to go do it on the We're going to go do it on the Brazos. Rowing.
Lead up the team. Start waking up at 5 a.m. Bring some girls out. Take them to row the boat.
That water is probably second only to. What's it called? Ladybird. What do we call that now?
Town Lake.
Town Lake.
Nobody does. Austinites are going to come at you, whatever you call it.
Yeah, you can't win. But the Brazos, they might get as many nasty infections as you would get in that water. So
you're not supposed to fall in the water when you row. I guess you can't start the team if you don't know the sport.
Don't let me be the coach. Maybe that's the ultimate incentive. Like, you don't fall in because you're going to fall into the Brazos. No.
So another guy was like, well, I'd rather us spend all our money on facilities to improve our team. I don't think Town Lake or the beach volleyball courts that Texas already had require much maintenance.
Pretty cheap sports. You know what I want, Amanda? I don't know where you come off on this. It's not going to happen, I don't think, in today's day and age. I would love to see the Aggies have a women's gymnastics team. That sport is so fun.
My first college had women's gymnastics. It is so much fun to watch. It's the most athletic sport out there, in my personal opinion.
And it produces superstars like Olympians. And
Olympians, yeah.
You look around the SEC and Oklahoma as well. It is so big.
But we love clowning on the Olympic sports.
Man, you're on quite a roll today, aren't you?
I thought the Olympic sports didn't matter, like swimming and diving.
They mattered last week when A&M won a track national title, but.
Yeah, exactly. They matter when they matter, but they don't matter when they don't.
Women's tennis.
Just moving that goalpost.
That's what we do. That is what we do. And with that, we will go to next week. We've got some fun stuff. We've got our first guest coming next week as well. And I guess I say next week. It'll be after the 4th of July. And then we'll start, we're about to be at an every week schedule throughout fall camp because there's just going to be so much to talk about.
Even more.
Looking forward to it. And I will get you your tequila, and we will be back with some more moving goalposts.
Yes. See y'all next time.
All right.